And as I mentioned in my Instagram with Turbo earlier in the week, I think the bowling for women is fantastic because it gets the women out there on the lanes. We don't have a tour right now. And my dream is that next year in 2021, we will have our very own PWBA league, because then we can showcase more of the great talent that's on the PWBA tour. Logoinfusion.com. Please check out one of our best sponsors ever. They're a fantastic sponsor for Storm and Rotogrip, as well as Ballard versus the Big C and Ballard's Bowling Academy. They are running a fantastic special for our event this year. Things may be a little bit different, so thank you, Ken and Kathy, for working with us on trying to get some new items out for this year's Ballard versus the Big C event. So please check out logoinfusion.com. And don't forget, all the information we talk about can be found on our Facebook page, Ballard's Bowling Academy, and our website, ballardsbowlingacademy.com, and our YouTube channel. So that's really all I have right now. Right, Del? Del, I want you to say hi to everybody before we move on, so everybody knows you're here.
Yes, I'm still alive.
Sporting our Ballard versus the Big C t-shirt. I love it. Okay, I'm really excited today. I mean, I know I'm passionate about talking anyway, because my goal was to always be a radio DJ if I wasn't a pro bowler. But today is extremely exciting. So it's going to take me a minute to intro today's guest. Right, Del? List of accolades.
Well, considering she is one of the best that's ever lived.
One of the best women bowlers to ever put on a pair of bowling shoes. So I'm gonna just say a few things. First, some words that I think describe our guest: loyalty, friend, bowler, mom, youth, organizer, Hall of Famer, wine. I had to throw that one in there. Okay. We are talking about someone who has amassed 27 professional titles. She's third on the list of all-time titles, only behind Alita Sill and Lisa Wagner, and she would have beat the number if the tour had not folded. She has two majors, which is the Queens and the U.S. Open, when she won it in Dallas Cowboys Stadium. My tongue burns a little bit when I say Dallas Cowboys, but not the U.S. Open. 12-time Bowler's Journal All-American. She is a USBC and a PWBA Hall of Fame. And I want everyone to really think about that just for a minute, because we talk about Hall of Fames, and to be in both, in the pinnacle of your career and for what your dreams are, I want everyone to think about that. That's pretty amazing. She was Player of the Year 3 times and the Rookie of the Year on the PWBA Tour. And I would like to introduce my friend, Leanne Hulsenberg, to Kicking Back. Hi, Leanne.
Good morning, my friends. Thanks for the ego boost there, running through all the great memories. Yeah, way to pump me up.
I'm going to tell you, I take lots of notes. We talk about this all the time. I'm still way old school on that one. I feel like I have to write everything down. But, we did bowl back in you actually started in 1987, your professional career. And we bowled in the 90s together into the 2000s and continue to bowl together. But when you go back and look at all you've actually done, and this would be my first question that I want to get into, myself writing all of this down and looking at it, I'm going, oh my God, I was there for that. Oh my God, I saw that. Oh my God, I watched that. What do you think when you actually sit and look at your resume?
It's kind of the same thing that I say a lot, is that bowling's been very good to me. Bowling has given me everything I have in my life, my career, my friends, my husband, and now my job. So, through all the ups and downs, I'm pretty fond of the sport of bowling for all that it's given me.
Absolutely. And you've always been involved in one way or another. When we did bowl on tour, we had mentioned this, 24 years, you actually were with Ebonite before making the change to Storm. Yep. I had the pleasure of being on staff with you for roughly 14 years. But tell us a little bit, in this time of change, one of the things when I look at this, 24 years with Ebonite, transitioning right over to Storm, 7 years, help creating with your husband, Gary, these Storm Youth Championships, that's loyalty. And I think that's important to talk a little bit about that, especially through these trying times. So tell us a little bit about your time with Ebonite and then transitioning to Storm with the SYC.
Yeah, I totally am grateful for everything that Ebonite gave me. I met Pam Buckner, who was an Ebonite pro staffer when I was a little girl. My grandfather took me up to Reno where she was the house pro. And so I had a long connection before I even was a professional bowler with Pam. And so when I joined the tour, she had a great responsibility, and she kind of got me hooked up with the Ebonite and on staff. And we only had like 3 staffers when I first started on tours: Jeannie Nacarado, Pam Buckner, we had 4, and Alita Sill. So it was a very small pro staff, which blossomed into a very large, awesome pro staff. As you know, we had some great times and did some great things with the late Bob Reed. He was a big fan of women's bowling. We did a lot of fun things, our group of ladies, and very grateful to Ebonite. And things change. I always wanted to be one of the pro bowlers who stayed with one company their entire career. And I basically did that, because the tour ended. So I was very proud of my time with Ebonite. And then, things change and business changes and everything. And we joined Storm. And ultimately, while it was kind of weird to do that for me, it was what ultimately brought us to Utah and have this great job and giving back to the sport of bowling through Bill and Barb and Storm products. So everything happens for a reason, I'm finding out. So sometimes you just have to wait for it.
I totally agree with you, but I would like to talk, one of the things we talk about all the time, and we have a lot of conversations, but is giving back to the sport and giving back because it's given us a lot of opportunities. Long before the Storm Youth Championship, though, even when we were on tour in the 90s, you ran a fundraiser for the Oklahoma victims.
Yep.
I remember that. You also had your own youth organization that you worked with Mike Hillman, Cloverleaf Bowl, up in Northern California. So really, you've always given back to your community and to the sport. But what actually spurred the thought for the Storm Youth Championships? Where did this come from?
Well, it's very simple. Storm was a sponsor of Junior Gold years ago, and our whole team here at Storm worked on Junior Gold. And it's such a big event, and we had so much invested in that tournament. And you have meetings afterwards and, what we can and cannot do. Well, it's such a big event, and we didn't feel that we really made a connection because it's so big. And so we kind of brainstormed around here, and Gary and I and Blair and our team here at Storm, and we thought we could run little events, all throughout the year to support Junior Gold, kind of like a little ground, get people ready for the big tournament. And so we decided to just have some small regional events throughout the country. We had one in Reno, and then one spawned another one. As you know, you were there from the beginning with us, spawned another one, and we've grown. We had 2, then we had 4, then we had 6. So we've had 13 so far, and we lost a couple this year, but we're still moving forward with 1, 2, 3, 4 more this year, I believe. So, which I think they're small, but we make a lot of connections with kids and families across the country. And everyone at Storm has so much knowledge, and you and Dell join us, because Ballard versus Big C is our official charity. And we just share everything we know about bowling with these families. And I think we take for granted that, people, they know everything, or, but there's so many people who just want to learn.
Right.
And I really feel like there's so much more to the SYC than the actual competition. It's just everything that we share with all the families. So it's really our favorite project to work on.
I agree with that. I've talked with Dell a lot about, you assume people know that there's bowl.com or there's, information on there about college bowling. And then you talk with people at some of these events and you find out that they really don't know where to look. Like we just assume everybody knows to go there because we do. But I think the masses are the people that we now touch
Yep.
with the knowledge of not only the sport of bowling, but all of the opportunities that are available for their kids. And there's so many great scholarship opportunities out there. And Storm at the SYC allows that to come out as not only a vision, but with the education also for the parents and the kids. And I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, between all of us at the SYC, how many little conversations break apart with groups? I mean, you always have a mass at the Ballard versus Big C table for the raffles and the fundraising, but you're telling them about the colleges and about this territory, and I'm talking to this family, and it's like we get so far away from the tournament sometimes, but it's all just sharing all the knowledge. And back at the hotel, we sit and talk to families, and so it really is just a great weekend when we have our SYCs.
So that is our current Leanne Hulsenberg. So now I'm going to digress just a little bit. So there is a new PWBA tour. I believe they are going into their 7th year, if I'm not mistaken. 7th. I should have checked that, but I think it's the 7th year. I know when we bowled, one of the key factors that we always talked about that really resonated with us was, yes, we did have 28, 32 weeks. I mean, we were going strong. Sometimes we bowled 9 weeks in a row. You couldn't go home because you were on the East Coast the entire time, and it was TV show day on Thursday, right into Pro-Ams on Friday or Saturday. Travel was Friday, Pro-Am Saturday. We enjoyed that family friend atmosphere because really that's who became your family. And we celebrated birthdays out there. I mean, I remember Tammy turning 30. So that's over 20 years ago because she's going to be 50 this year. So tell us a couple of things that you feel, the old tour. What were 2 things that you remember being some of the best times?
We get that question a lot, right? And it's always, you don't really talk about the tournament or how you finished or if you won or lost or whatever, but it's always about the times that we shared on tour. And like you said, we've had many birthday parties, many, wedding showers, a few baby showers, here and there towards the end. But one of my favorite times a year was the fall tour, and we always celebrated Anne-Marie Dugan and Kim Terrell Kearney's birthday because they have the same birthday. So it was always a very large dinner party in September, and so that was always a fun time. And then we went to baseball games together on like after practice session. If we had an early pro-am, we'd go to baseball games, and the ball reps would come with us, and we just had 12 to 20 people hanging out, and they had motorhome parties. You had a motorhome for many years, so there was often 4 or 5 or 6 motorhomes with Nikki G and Tish, and Wendy had one sometimes. And so you guys had barbecue. I mean, it was just one big family, so there was a lot of good times for sure.
I like talking about that because I do think it fostered a lot of friendships of people at times you may not have gotten to know because you watched them on the lanes or they were a competitor. And it was those times off the lanes that we actually were just normal people. And that's what I think I try to explain to everybody is what you see on the lanes is your job. That it's a job. But it was off the lanes that we were friends and family, that we became extended family because we spend so much time together. And what do you see as the difference between those times and the tour now?
I did an article with Jeff Riggles a couple years ago, and he asked about the differences between our tour that we bowled on and the new PWA. He goes, "What are the differences?" I go, "Everything is different. There's really not anything that is the same. The format is different. The lane conditions are different. The travel is different. The talent is different, not in a better or different way. It's just that there was more collegiate bowlers nowadays and stronger younger players that come out. But I think the biggest thing is obviously the travel. The short formats now, people fly in, bowl practice the same day, they start their competition, they fly out. Whereas like you said, we hung out. We started, the weekend was practice and pro-ams, and we competed for 3 days, and we had the TV show, then we traveled. But often on Saturday, we were all together in the bowling center practicing. And I remember, like, if you had a bad week or if you were practicing, our friends helped us. Like, they were our eyes, and they worked on our timing, and we would all spend another day practicing. I mean, it was totally 100% our life for those 4, 6, 8 week swings that we did. I mean, it was some I think our shortest time consecutively was 4 weeks, maybe in the winter and then the spring, but they were always 6 and 8 week segments that we were on the road, and we were all together. I mean, we traveled together. Very few people flew. We all had our trucks and motorhomes, and we loaded up. I mean, I had a coffee pot, I had a VCR, like I had everything loaded in I had a Ford Expedition, and Kim had a Ford Expedition, and we, we all had vans, and we traveled coast to coast. And there's so many differences nowadays, but and not good or bad or better, or one tour was better than the others, but I don't see a lot of the things that we did back then now, so it's so for you and I to still be competing a little bit now is really, it's weird, right? Because it's not the same. So we're like, you find yourself being, somewhat of an old bitter woman, like, that's not the way we did it, but it's different, and and I could ramble about the good old days, but one thing I was very impressed in, just the stats for everyone. We have all of our titles back then. It's really hard to compete against the young girls nowadays. And although I think we could still win, like on any given day, things could match up for our old bodies.
The queen.
Yeah. I mean, things have to match up, obviously. Right. But the thing that I was really impressed with is Liz Johnson. She's got 25 titles, and she has half of them then and half of them now, which really kind of solidifies her as kind of the GOAT, because she has done, she's probably won more majors now, but she has won equal amount of titles, and which is very impressive, I think.
I totally agree with you. And that's a testament also to, yes, we are a little bit older, but to keeping yourself in shape.
Totally.
I mean, the walking or the working out, and that actually is refined. I mean, I used to go to the gym 5 days a week. I only go 3 times, or I work out 3 times a week.
Right.
But we do a lot of walking. We do other things that do keep our legs and our core in shape, so that when we do get to some of these formats, the longer ones, like the Queens, if you're making match play, right?
Totally.
Especially in the losers bracket. We don't want to talk about that.
Yep.
Or the U.S. Open, or the Ron Moore tournament that we bowl now. It's a lot of games in a shorter amount of time.
Sure.
So it's a testament to everybody, the Tish and the Lucy and you and myself and Liz, and who still get out there and compete, because it's hard work still, but in a different way.
Totally.
In a different way with perspective. So as we move on and we're talking about tours and whatever, what is your thought about today's PWBA draft?
I think it's great. I really, I wasn't planning on bowling a whole bunch this year. I was going to bowl the majors. We have a lot of events that overlap. So I was just going to focus on bowling the Queens and the U.S. Open. But when the tour, was canceled for the COVID reasons and difficulty in making all that happen, no fault of the PWBA, obviously. I mean, how in the world could they plan a whole tour? But so it's disappointed for all the girls who had, waited from last year, worked really hard, made the changes, looking forward to it, and then it was canceled. So the draft is something for them to look forward to, and I think it's a great showcase for women's bowling, and you're going to have 10 of the best, girls out there showcasing our sport, and I think only good things can come of it for the ladies.
I think so too. I know everybody always has their opinion because everybody's an expert at something, as we all know. But again, with no women being able to bowl because there is no tour, it's a special event. We're not talking a major championship. We're not talking a tour
it's an exhibition.
It is a fun, special event that allows you to bowl the team concept, which I've loved my entire life. So don't forget, we won a team challenge together, right? We won the
Yeah,
nationals, the
we sure
national
did.
team
We won the big
challenge.
one with
We won,
our Wichita girls. We won it. Yeah. Good.
correct. We
Another
did.
good memory.
Do
Yeah.
you remember where that was?
Wasn't it in like Baton Rouge or
It was in
Louisiana or somewhere?
Louisiana. Very
Yeah.
good. Yes,
Yeah.
it was. And fantastic time. But team bowling has always been a great thing. The women bowlers on the original PWBA tour, we had a team event one year. We bowled with the American Wheelchair Bowlers Association
Yeah.
one year for a
Yep.
trios tournament. One thing I love about it, and I think it's good for bowling, is that it does allow you um, to bowl with your peers instead of always against them. And
Hmm.
I think sometimes we need some of that. I don't think we have enough of that in bowling. I know there are some doubles events, but the actual team atmosphere brings out something different. And how do you feel about that?
I totally agree with you. I think all of our special events, and really this is just an exhibition of women's bowling, competing with the men, but anytime bowling has done a mixed event with men and women, we've had like 3 or 4 US Opens that have been competed in the same bowling center. Everyone loves it because they love
Right.
to see the best of both, best of the men and best of the women compete together. The Merit mixed doubles that we bowled a long
Oh,
time ago in Reno was one of their most popular events all year. And I truly think this could spawn, like you said, the women's team series, and
yeah,
give all the women members a chance to bowl. And I think it'll just kind of, maybe spawn a new event for the women, which will be great.
I agree. I totally agree. Totally agree with that. So what would you like to see for women's bowling? If you could just go out there and it would happen. What are some of the things that you'd like to see for women's bowling moving forward?
That's easy. I would like to see them have a full-fledged tour like we had. I would like to see not a part-time tour. I would like girls to actually have their living. I would like them not to have a summer vacation bowling on tour because that's what it kind of seems like is, it's in the summer, spring and summer. Girls go out, travel, they have a great old time. It needs to be a full-time job for them, and they need to have, I pull into my garage and I just have mementos from bowling, but I have some old checks in my garage that Gary won't let me throw away. I'm
Right.
like, we don't need these, but we used to get the big plastic, the big plexi board
Yeah.
checks and stuff, and there are girls now are bowling for the same amount of money that we bowled for then. The
Right.
first place is the same, the 24th is the same. And while the expenses nowadays are higher, travel, they're flying, their hotels are more, it's just more expensive than it was 20 years ago. And they're kind of making the same amount of money. And I would really like to wave our magic wand and double the prize fund so that girls can make a living, and they can bowl all year and they can, have a career and feel good about it, and
Right.
I think that a lot of them are just happy to have the tournaments, which is great, but I'm like, don't you guys want to have a full career over this? You don't want to, work to save money to go bowl full time. You should
Right.
be doing it as a full time, and I don't know. And I'm sure it's, not as easy as we think to get people interested in our sport. And but you never know. And it would be my wish that they could just put some extra money in the prize funds and let the girls make a living and all that sort of thing.
I agree. It is amazing. Sometimes I look, and Dell and I talk about this all the time because, of course, like you and Gary, you're involved in the industry, and Dell working on the men's side and being a past PBA champion himself. It saddens me a little to see in 2020 um, where women's bowling is still as compared to the men. I feel have progressed obviously each year. So I would like to play catch up a little bit. I've never been shy about that. So hopefully this will spawn something from this PBA league. And of course, after COVID goes away and moving into 2021, hopefully we will see a resurgence and people will say, you know what, we need to be a part of that because it's community oriented, it's youth oriented, it's family oriented, it's really for any age. I mean, you kind of,
Yeah.
you brought it up yourself. I mean, we still show up at the Queens. You don't have to be 18 to bowl the Queens.
Mm-mm.
So, I mean, it's even the professional side of it gives you an opportunity for a vast and wide range of people to support it, which means it really does appear to all different types of sponsors for any age. So I love that analogy. But through all of this and where you are now, working full time, you still bowl the majors. We still meet and bowl some of our older events. That's all
Senior,
I'll say.
veteran events.
But
Yeah.
you are married to Gary Hulsenberg, Director of Marketing at Storm. You have a beautiful son, Barrett, which we knew his name many years ago before he was even born. Um, so, piece of advice: how do you manage a full-time job, still getting time to practice a little bit, spending time with your son, and doing all these wonderful things for youth bowling and promoting Storm? How do you balance it?
It's not easy, and yeah, it's not easy at all. Gary's a great dad, so I never really worry about when I travel and leave the boys at home. They actually like when I go on the road because they have their guy time, so there's no problem there, and I don't worry 1 ounce about what they're doing when I'm gone. So. And thankfully, when he was a little baby, we didn't have a tour and I wasn't traveling. So I was able to be home with him and take care of that. But there's probably no way that I could do it if I didn't work at Storm, because Storm is such a big supporter of all of their employees and participating in events and being able to go, like there's so much flexibility in my job and being a representative of Storm that, they like for us to participate in tournaments, like Alex and Steve, they go bowl the Masters and they do great and they're representing Storm, and, Hank bowls and, I bowl, and, it's a good thing. And I ask permission, I always go to Bill and Dave and tell them my plans and ask permission to go bowl. And they're like, of course you need to go bowl. You have to get out there. And, but you know what? It's not easy. And this year, when Matt McNeil was kind of putting together a program for our pro staff, we had to read this book, The Inner Game of Tennis, which is a really great book for all of those of you out there. Carolyn probably has it on her desk right there. There it is. So I've never read it before. So in my career, when I bowled full time, I was single, didn't really have boyfriends. I could say that I was 200% dedicated to my career, and I was really focused. There was no outside interferences or anything. And in the first chapter of that book, it talks about that, and it talks about how to, and I was like, no wonder I was good, because I didn't have anything. And then instantly, this was just in like February this year, I went, there's no way I could possibly be as good as I used to be, because I have so many things going on that I never had before. So that's when I decided I should probably just bowl the majors, because there's no possible way that I'm going to be as dedicated as I was then. I'm bowling qualifying and I'm thinking, did I send that email? Did I follow up on the tournament group? I'm really a good multitasker.
You're multitasking.
But it's not good when you're supposed to be 100% completely focused on your bowling. So That's when I realized I probably shouldn't bowl full time, and Barrett's 11 now. And I like hanging out with him, and you and I are so similar, Alyssa's older, but you do a lot of the same things. So it's not as easy. And so the girls who have kids, it's rough. You have to have a really good support system. So
it is. And I don't have my other book up here. It's actually on the stairs, because I brought it down to write something to one of my kids on Saturday. And it's Pressure is a Privilege by Billie Jean King. Who I love. My husband's probably sick of me talking about it, because especially in this day and age, oh my God, with everything going on, I've been talking about her forever. And she actually has some great insight in that book, which is good. What's the word? Advice for people who are maybe getting a little older in their sport. And one of the examples she gives is when she worked with Martina Navratilova, who was in her late 30s, early 40s, still wanting to win, wasn't ready to retire yet. and how they actually refocused how she could get back to what she did 15 years ago. So it was a little different. She didn't really journal, she didn't really do that. And then moving on, in that time period, she wrote it every day. She wrote posting notes in her house just to remind her that this was her goal. And it's just right. It's another book that gives a different perspective on whatever level you're at. There's always a way to bring you back to that competitive nature, because it leads me to my next question. Do you ever think you lose the competitive edge?
If I lost a competitive edge, I wouldn't want to bowl anymore. Like, that's why I bowl. It's still, I can't get rid of it. And I realize why, like, Brett Favre doesn't retire, or, you know, like they don't have to prove
Tom
anything,
Brady.
but they must. Yeah.
Right.
Does Tom Brady need to prove anything? I mean, like, and they keep on competing. And I kind of like, I kind of get that, like, because I could go, you know, months without bowling, you know, for whatever reason, you know, like just not practicing, because I practice when I actually like have something to bowl, you know, and I get ready. But when I start practicing, I'm totally like, this is great. I can't wait to bowl, you know, like, and I my work ethic is the same, and I prepare the same, and as I did back then. And Gary always tells me, he's like, what are you so upset about? And I was like, I'm preparing, you know, like I'm in my mode. And I don't know. I think there's a really good, this is kind of funny, but there's a Toby Keith song that's called, I don't know what it's called, but it goes, I'm not as good as I once was, but I'm good once as I ever was. So that's kind of a good, because it's true, right? Like, I mean, like, I feel at times like I'm a better bowler than I used to be, but it's dependent upon how the body wakes up feeling that day, or is my back going to go out? I'm like, you know, I mean, like, there's things you can't control, you know, like I'm in pretty decent shape for being a 52, 53. And, but one morning my back, you know, I can't bowl, you know, so it's like so dependent on that. And that makes it a little rough at times, but, you know, you get a little feel and you get things going. And you well know you had a great showing last year at the US Open, and you kicked some butt, and you had a very good chance to make the TV show, and then you could have won. So, I mean, you get that little taste and then you're suckered back in, right? So
that's what I say that all the time. I go, why did I bowl well? Because I think I can do it. This is stupid.
It keeps suckering you in.
But, you know, it's funny because I do think bowling is different in general. And I do think there is a way, like you said, to be able to compete at the highest level when there's two things. You made the comment that when you know you are getting ready for an event, it is all about that. So other things, you learn how to balance it. Marshall Kent basically said the same thing, and he's only 27 years old, at the top of his game, but he says the same thing. Even as much as he could bowl day in and day out, every time he practices, and it may not be every day, but it's quality. Quality practices over quantity.
Totally.
And what he'll do is he may go in one day and he may only bowl for an hour at 1 PM, but he may come back at 5 and bowl for another hour. That to him was quality over quantity. And he gets more out of that than just going, because he found that after he bowled 2 or 3 hours, it was just like, oh, I'm picking up my ball and I'm just going. And he said, I realized one day, what am I doing? Like I did this an hour ago. So I think it's very important, and I think that's a great tip for anyone who's at any point in their career. It really is about quality over quantity, and everybody's quality is different. I mean, it really is. You and I are cut from the same cloth on that one. We were always practicers. Being in the bowl for 2 hours and working on our timing or our release or whatever it was, if someone asked us to do that, we'd be like, okay. There was no discussion. There was no, well, let me try to fit that in, or let me think about it. It was okay, 1 o'clock tomorrow, no problem. And again, it was about those 2 hours, and it was going to be the best 2 hours, because we knew leaving the bowling center, we did what we needed to do to be the best we could be tomorrow. And I think that's a great piece of advice. Kelly Kulick said the same thing. Now, you had mentioned Gary. God bless Gary, or Gar. I think Dell has a nice little comment about Gary.
He probably has a lot of fun.
I think he wanted to share something, but I'm going to try to keep this, is it PG?
Yes, it'll be PG.
Okay, so
We'll
Dell,
bleep it.
is there something you'd like to say? Try. Yeah,
Well,
Dell's holding his cheek, but we'll talk about that. Go ahead.
yeah,
What's
it's all
about
right.
Gary?
Um, I remember the first time I had heard that you were dating Gary,
2004.
and I remember the same time because my daughter was just born, and I was bowling a regional in Rohnert Park, and we're crossing next to each other. We're sitting there on the end chair, talking, and we hear this loud f bomb, both of us at the same time. And you looked that way where it came from, and I looked at you because I knew who it was. I knew
But
the,
I didn't.
and you go, "Is that Gary?" And I said, "That's your guy."
And what did I say? Something like, "This might be our last regional that we bowl
That's
together."
that's what I think you said. You said, "Uh oh,
Are you?
Yes.
oh
No,
yeah."
Dell, you wanted to say, is Carolyn in the crowd?
No, I
He's
knew
a
better
I've
because,
been talking with Gary.
oh my gosh,
he's
that
a
was,
fiery competitor. He's not that way anymore, but he's a fiery. We were very much the opposite when we competed, and yeah, that was kind of a funny. That's a good memory, Dell.
oh yeah, I'll never forget it. And this is when you guys first started dating. I might have
Yeah,
even said something like, "We get used to it,"
I'm
because
sure
I
you did. You knew him way before I knew him, so
right, and I loved Gary. I loved his attitude. I loved the fire, the whole thing.
yeah,
I
yeah.
did.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I forgot just now until you said that. I worked with Gary when he was an Ebonite sales rep.
Yeah. He
For a year
knew.
or two.
The weird thing about Gary and I is he grew up in San Jose and I grew up in Fremont. So we're about 6 months apart in age. So
Okay.
and we grew up about 20 miles apart. And we bowled a lot of the same youth tournaments when we were teenagers and stuff. And then I moved to Oklahoma and I went on to bowl and stuff. We never knew each other. And then later on, he bowled on tour for a couple years, never knew each other. And then he worked for Ebonite and I was on Ebonite Pro staff, never knew each other. I bowled a doubles tournament in Pacifica with his brother one year before I
Guy,
ever met Gary.
guy.
Kim knew Gary, you knew Gary. Everyone knew, like we knew all the same friends, but we had never connected, and it's so weird. So I think that's kind of why we connected because we already knew a lot of the same, things, and
Hmm.
we had the same lifestyles and stuff like that. But we got to know each other very quickly, and it was comfortable and stuff like that. But it's kind of funny.
I
Very.
think that's I think that's great how bowling again, all the stars aligned so that Gary found Leanne. I love it. That's so great. We talked a little bit. I know, gosh, we can just go on and on. I know we've got about 10 more minutes. Um, we talked a little bit about a piece of advice earlier on differences between the tours and um, we both, you mentioned Barrett, 11 years old. Alyssa just turned 16 in March. Um, if there was one piece of advice, because I'd like to know your thoughts, um, I always tell everyone you may not think about it now when you're 27 or even 32, but don't wait till you're 38 to have your first child. Although I am blessed and I love it, I wanted more children. Um, so that was one thing is I always told everybody that the career is always there, especially in bowling, because you can bowl when you're pregnant. So I
Yeah,
always,
you have pregnancy luck. Usually,
I
you win when you're pregnant. So
exactly. So I always tell the girls, just throw it in the back of your mind that you may not want to wait till you're about 38, because you and we basically did the same thing,
yeah.
and that was my little piece of advice was kind of reassess the career. If you are thinking about kids, you may want to bump it up just a few years because I would have done it just a pinch differently. It's definitely not a regret, but something I would have changed my mindset about.
Yeah, I can understand that. I have similar thoughts, but in a different way because I never, like you and Dell were married how many years before you had Alyssa?
7,
Okay, so
and I should have. I just
plenty of time,
right.
but like I said, when I was bowling, I never really had the relationships and stuff. I was 100% focused and didn't really have an interest in that sort of thing because I didn't feel like I could do both. like I was on the road and I couldn't meet someone if I was traveling and stuff like that. So for me, I really feel lucky that even though, like I said, I wasn't happy when the tour ended, but like I said, everything happens for a reason, and sometimes you don't know
What that
why.
reason
And
is? Yeah.
so our tour ended, and I was completely devastated because it was all I had in my life. And then my father became ill. So if there was a tour, I may have not been home when he was ill, and he was ill for 3 months in the hospital before he passed away. And I was with him pretty much every day. And then soon after that, I met Gary. So, while it was terrible and then something good came of it, I felt very lucky that I was able to have both, have a great career and have that, because that was the only thing I thought I was going to have in my life. I was happy being a auntie to my two nephews, and I just thought I'm going to be a bowler my whole life. I never really had a vision for having a personal life. The tour ended, and then I was so lucky to be able to have my personal life. And even though I was 40 when I had Barrett, I, was grateful that I still had the opportunity to have that. And he was such a good baby that I do wish I was younger so that I could have another one and have a sibling for him. But I'm so lucky to have had both. But you're right. I don't, there's nothing greater than having a family and having a child and being able to share your life and experiences with them. So yeah, I mean, if you have the opportunity and things are in a good place, like, don't wait, because it's the best thing ever. So don't wait on it. I totally agree with you there.
I agree with that. And that basically, if there's just, I don't know. I want you to give before I let you go, because I am going to sign off a certain way with you, and then Del, don't sign off, because I want to say something at the end. But I do a youth chat on Sunday nights. I had Mike Hillman was sitting on with us last Sunday.
Yep.
Leanne, one piece of advice for our youth bowlers.
Well, you kind of touched on it. This is not anything too deep or tricky or anything, and it's something I will answer almost every time. And you said it's about practicing. So often I'll see kids go practice and they're just bowling, willy-nilly, like they're just out there goofing around and all that. And personally, I do the same thing as quality over quantity right now. Like if you have other things going on in your life, you don't have as much time to practice. But and it's something we say at every SYC: practice with a purpose. Like, practice something. Practice what you're not good at. I mean, I practice on my lunch break here at Storm. We have 2 lanes, so I'll go downstairs, I'll eat my lunch, and then I'll go bowl for a half hour. And I am practicing playing straight up the gutter and playing them straight as I can, because I'm terrible at that. So why am I going to go down and practice, what I'm good at? So more often than not, I am practicing what I'm not good at, in hopes that I can get better at it and be more comfortable when I need to do that. Because you can't always play your A game, as you and I know, especially nowadays. You have to be versatile and you have to learn some tricks. Right. So while keeping in shape and practicing and making sure your timing is good, go out of your comfort zone and practice different things and learn new things and practice different parts of the lane. And people say, well, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to play fifth arrow. Just play fifth arrow. You don't have to have the pins. You don't have to keep score. You just have to be comfortable knowing where you're sliding and where you're targeting and repeating shots and getting comfortable, and then go from there. I mean, create a practice plan and practice new things. Challenge your friends to keep an eye on you. Get a practice buddy, and practice is the best thing that you can do. I mean, and it's what I think has contributed to our careers. Like you said, practice is kind of a simple saying. Practice makes perfect. It's true, but practice with a purpose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Leanne, you are where you're supposed to be, because I take notes. Look at all my little notes in my green pen. I say that all the time. You are working for a company that is extremely family oriented. I thank Storm and Rotogrip for everything they do for the industry and for Del and myself. You are an ambassador for our Turbo brand. Been with them forever, well over 20 plus years.
Yeah.
And I truly believe you are going to make an impact on our sport, which you already have in one way with your career and the SYC, but I see this branching off into other things. So I myself want to thank you for what you, Gary, your entire team, Storm and Rotogrip do for the industry. And we are thrilled to be able to call you guys our friends and extended family. And we look forward to seeing you in Tennessee.
Couple weeks,
Yes.
Thank you, Carolyn. I think you and I think a lot alike, and bowling has been very good to us, and I think we should always pay back what things are given to us, and it's people like us who can try to make the sport better. And I have so much passion for bowling, and if something bad happens in bowling, it encompasses all of us,
Right.
It really affects all of us, whether we had a part in it or not. So I think it's important that we're all positive and we're all trying to make a difference in bowling in a good way. And I love working with people like you, because I feel like we have the same vision, and is to grow the sport of bowling. And working here at Storm is like a really lucky thing for me, because I want to give back to the sport of bowling, and I get to do that through my job, which is great. So, and
Awesome.
Great people like our team that we always work with you and Dell and Ken and Kathy and all the great people of bowling. And so anyway,
and who will be with us in Tennessee really quickly? Is Kelly Kulick going to be there?
Yeah. The other girl who loves bowling as much as me, Kelly
passion.
Kulick. And I just we're actually calling all of our SYC families to let them know all the COVID safety precautions that were in place. And I talked to Susan Verano, who is Danielle McEwen's mom, and Danielle's has plans to join us in Smyrna because her sister's bowling. So It'll be us four girls there sharing our stories. But we're hoping for another great event in Smyrna, and then in Indy in August. So we're seeing all of our bowling families. Looking forward to it.
Exactly. Excellent. Well, thank you again, Leanne. I look forward to seeing you soon, and stay safe out there in Utah, and tell everybody we said hello.
Yeah, you guys too.
Thank you. You rock.
Yep. Love you guys.
Bye.
Love you too.
Bye.
So, Dell, let's chat. You can't chat as much, but I will. You want to say anything before I sign off?
No, I love Leanne and what she does. I do.
Yep, I know. And you love Gary too.
Oh, I know.
You just
I love me from Gary.
I know you do. Everybody does.
Easy to pick on.
Exactly. So I guess before we sign off, just a little note. We weren't going to go into much detail, but Dell, as you could see earlier, was holding his left side there. He will be having some surgery here in a couple of weeks. So poor Dell has a broken jaw. So, and I did not hit him. And if I get one comment in our about me hitting him or doing something, which I have had, that is not true. This is just a remnants of his radiation treatment. So, with that being said, it's another reason why Dell and I are passionate about Ballard versus the Big C. We help those going through the journey and who have gone through the journey, because there's always something that may be a little left over. And the surgery is July 22nd. We will be updating everyone. But other than that, Dell is doing fine. And once he gets his new jawbone put in there, he'll be back to chit-chatting away. So we just wanted to let everybody know. But thank you for joining us today on Kicking Back number 11. Please make sure to check out ballardsbowlingacademy.com, our website, and our YouTube channel that will have all of our Kicking Back podcasts on there, plus a lot of ball videos and videos about Turbo and our pro shop, Ballard's Bowling Academy. And also check out the Ballard versus the Big C page on Facebook. We have some phenomenal items that Logo Infusion has put out there. Help us raise some money for our event in September. We would greatly appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we will see you back here next Tuesday with another guest. Bye.